And I believe we are live. So, welcome everybody to the second episode. Believe it or not, this is episode number 2 of Frame Perspective. I am your try that again, Douglas. Framed Perspectives. Get that S in there. I am your host, Douglas Burns, founder of D&B Productions, a corporate photography firm based in Houston, Texas. And we are live on LinkedIn this morning. So if you have not done so, please be sure to grab your cup of coffee and sit back and enjoy wherever you're at. If you're in the car, if you are at your desk, we hope that you will enjoy this episode. Joining me today is the founder, president, and CEO of Network and Action International, Mr. Scott Talley, who is going to join us this morning and talk about all kinds of things networking related, how we can use networking to build our business, how we can use what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, tips and tricks, best practices, and anything you might want to ask him. So welcome, Scott. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Well, Doug, I appreciate being here. I'm flattered to be number 2.
Well, you're always number 1 in my heart, Scott. Always number 1 in my heart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much.
If you are listening in, this is live on LinkedIn. This is still a new platform for LinkedIn, so there may discover some headaches and some hiccups along the way. If you bounce out off your computer, try back on your cell phone or your tablet. If you're on your tablet or your cell phone, you bounce out, try on your laptop or your computer or your desktop. We're going to it's just a new platform, so just be aware of that. And as people come on board, we'd love to come online. We'd love to have you join in the conversation and ask Scott all your burning questions as well. So Scott, wanted to learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about Network in Action today. But let's start a little further back. What's your background? I was looking at your profile on LinkedIn. Looks like you got a background in publishing. Where do you've only been doing Network in Action for a few years now, but I mean, where'd you come from before this?
Well, Network in Action will be celebrating its 10th year in November, so we're proud of that. I think that's a perfect segue to what we're going to talk about today, and just how difficult it is to run a business compared to how it used to be. The statistics to make it 10 years are pretty low for businesses. So I think your call and your purpose of this whole entire LinkedIn communication is so important. I hope people will stay with you every session. But I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I'm a terminal entrepreneur. Started my first company when I was 31 years old. And I can tell you 36 years later, it's been an incredible ride, but it is much more challenging to run a business today. And we'll talk about that some today. But my background is in marketing. And yes, I owned a publishing business. I had whatever I was passionate about, Doug, I went out and found a magazine to produce. I love golf. At one point, I owned Texas Golfer magazine and over the whole state of Texas. And then I was into the motorcycle craze at one point. And so I had a motorcycle magazine. But our primary business was working with membership organizations, chambers of commerce, and better business bureaus all over the country and in Canada. And we produced directories for those organizations. I think we were one of the first ones to ever do that with paid advertising in it. So that was a great run until Google came along, and my wife got a real estate license, and I kept encouraging her to go network, and while at the same time being very critical of the way network was being offered. And that was the impetus behind starting Network in Action.
Well, let's talk about that. What were some of those experiences like for networking for you? Both. I mean, look, let's talk about what it was like 30 years ago when you started your entrepreneurial journey compared to what you're seeing out there today. What is your experiences like in the networking space?
Well, that really is a great question. It's very timely because, in my opinion, networking is the only, if you call it an industry, networking is the only industry I know of that has one dominant player, and that dominant player has changed very little, if anything, in 40 years. So if you think about it, most of this audience listening today, if you're used to traditional networking, you've only experienced it one way. So sort of one person has been telling us what networking is. And I never joined that organization, never participated, but I certainly attended. And even in my 2 or 3 times that I attended, it was glaring to me what was wrong with that model. And so Network in Action, we set out to do everything 100% different.
So let's talk about some of those differences.
Sure. So networking is a really heavy lift in the traditional sense. You can find videos from the networking companies out there that say you need to spend 3 to 5 hours a week and you need to plan on a couple of years. Well, in today's popcorn satisfaction society, there's not a lot of business owners that want to invest 3 to 5 hours a week for 2 years to see a result. And that's not to say you can't get a result sooner, but it's just a heavy lift. It was a big time commitment. And then the next thing that I noticed was that because you had volunteer leaders, one group might be run great, following the model, good leadership, getting everybody's involvement. And another group may be run terribly. The leader, it's next man up or next woman up, and they're not ready for the position, don't have the time to put in, don't really believe in the model. And so that group either goes down in number of members or disbands. And you're sort of along for that roller coaster ride. And they encourage you to pay for 2 years, which I think is insane, because how do you even know who you're going to be networking with so much turnover? So just a lot of things, a lot of hair on that model, in my opinion. And so what we tried to do at Network in Action was create a much more efficient way that people could connect. And we went to a monthly model. So we're saving people over 80 hours a year. Now, if you think about that, if you put value on your time, if you're $150, $200 an hour person, which most entrepreneurs would say is in the range of where they try to be, you're talking about needing to get $40,000 or $50,000 worth of business to make traditional networking work. So it's not the fee you're paying to be in the group, it's the amount of time you're dedicating to that group to help make it work. So you end up working on their business as much as you're working on your business, because you're required to drag friends there. And every month you got to find somebody that's willing to go with you at 7 o'clock in the morning and have some powdered egg and overcooked bacon and experience what I think is a lot of wasted time. So we just wanted to create a new, fresh model, completely different, 360 degrees. And luckily, by the grace of God and a little bit of good luck and some great leaders and our franchise owners who are financially vested, we have a different model, and it provides people a shocking experience. When they come, they say it all the time, like, my goodness, that was the fastest 90 minutes of the month, or I can't believe I can connect so deeply with people with just a monthly meeting. But we also have great technology, Doug, and you need that technology in any business. If you're not the technology leader today, you're falling behind.
Well, that's definitely true. But I mean, now you mentioned, paying to join a group, and I think that's a tried and true method. But there's a lot of other non-paid networking opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a couple of them. Chamber of Commerce's often have, free events in addition to paid lunches and memberships and the like. And there's other industry, your industry probably has some organizations and whatnot that are different. Tell us, how is working within an organization like yours different in networking? Let me rephrase this. How is networking in an organization like yours, where you're paying to be a member of a networking organization, different than, say, joining an industry association or joining the Chamber of Commerce or joining the BBB?
Yeah, I think there's two great points. So you can network anywhere. I can hang around my church after on Sunday, and if I want to go over to the community center and visit with people, there's always opportunities to network, and that typically works great. More for the extrovert. But what makes a traditional networking group really work is two things. One, it's typically industry exclusive. So if you're not the person with the biggest, brightest, most outgoing personality, you still have a really great opportunity to benefit. The second thing is the most important thing, is that in a traditional networking group, someone is holding you accountable for helping other people in the room. And so if I'm a part of a chamber, and I've got, let's say I'm a realtor, there's 5, 10, 15, 20 other realtors. There's always one or two that go to every single event, it seems like, and they have the most outgoing personalities. And of course, they're going to score the business. So in a traditional networking group, it's very different, where it's organized and designed to help you. It's almost like ordering a brochure and plan to mail it out to 10,000 people. You're going to get a result if you follow the activities that the leader sort of instructs you to. And it's just very, very different. So I always say, let me sum that up. A business owner has to decide how important building relationships is in their business. And we can talk about that a little more later, but I think it's one of the most important things you can do. And I say that from experience because I didn't do it the first 45 years of my life. Believe it or not, Doug, I was not a big networker. I didn't understand the value, hadn't reaped the results of it. And so I think a person really has to look at networking. And if they decide to make that a part of their strategy to grow their business, then they need to be in an organized networking group.
That's great. Guys, if you are just joining us, we are live on LinkedIn this morning talking to Scott Talley, owner, founder of a Network in Action, a brilliant international networking group, I should mention. We're picking his brain and learning from him this morning. If you are joining us and you have some burning questions, be sure to hop on stage. Let's hear from you. Let's hear from your questions. You can either direct message me here on LinkedIn, or you can just raise your hand, come on stage. We'd love to hear from you this morning. If you are having technical issues, if you are listening either at your office or on your phone on your way to and from work, and you pop back on, this is a new platform from LinkedIn, and they're still working out some of the bugs on this. So, well, Scott, let's talk about what what are some of the things people that do wrong when I go to a networking event, whether it's at a paid networking group that I'm a member of, or I go to the local chamber of commerce, or I buy a table at some event, or a seat at a table at some event, a social event. What are some of the things that people do wrong when we're out there trying to do networking and building our business?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll tell you that. I'm gonna make this easy. If you show up with a bunch of brochures and flyers and you're trying to hand those out to the masses, you're sending the wrong signal. If you show up and you're talking about your employer or you're talking about how horrible they are, I always say leave the drama at the door. Imagine that if you're talking about, I had this situation, Doug. I had a woman who was responsible for the marketing for a dentist office here in the Houston area. And every meeting, she just would come to the meeting, and whoever would listen to her, she would just dog the dentist and talk about how horrible an employer she was and what a terrible job she did with the employees. And I finally pulled the woman aside and I said, "Do you think anyone in their right mind would refer to that dentist the way you speak about her?" So leave the drama at the door. Don't come there to sell. And think back to the days when some of us were younger and single, and what you did to get a second date. You showed interest in the other party. And that's the way to do it in networking. The more questions you can ask. I oftentimes will spend, if I met you, Doug, I might spend 10, 12, 15 minutes just finding out about your business, not even tell you what I do unless you ask. And then at the end, I'll say, Doug, grab your phone. This is one of the themes that I want to talk about today is how many new and different ways there are of doing things. So in the old days, I left the networking meeting with 10, 15, 20 business cards, and that's how I rated whether or not it was a successful meeting. Today, like I said, I might spend 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes letting you talk about your photography business. And then I just grab my phone and say, Doug, I know you got your calendar on you. Let's find a time to have a cup of coffee. And so if I can leave every networking event with a couple of actual appointments, I've made that a very successful event, in my opinion.
That is, you mentioned something that I've seen a lot of people do at a lot of the events, especially chamber events. I'm going to pick on and it doesn't really matter what chamber. I mean, every chamber is a little bit different, but you definitely see this specifically at chamber events, but at other events as well. It's that guy that walks into the room and starts handing out his business card to everybody in the room.
Yep.
And you mentioned something else that I thought is very apropos, and I've heard it talked about before. Networking can be a lot like dating. You're at the bar, and do you want to be the guy that's going around and trying to pick up every girl in the room, or do you want to be the guy in there that's just saying who might be interested in me, who I might be interested in, who I might have interest in, and can we form a connection?
Doug, I was single till I was 43, and I have a true story that I remember very, very well. I remember where I was, but I sat down next to someone that I wanted to get to know, and I proceeded to ask them questions for a good 10 or 12 minutes. And I remember I said, "Excuse me a second, I'll run to the restroom." When I did, her girlfriend turned next to her and said, "Oh my God, he's so sweet." And I hadn't said a darn word. I could have been a serial killer for all she knew. But showed I had showed great compassion for her and great empathy and wanted to get to know her. So questions, questions, questions is the way to get an appointment. And think about that. If you do the opposite, if I walk in, Doug, and the first thing I start doing is handing you a brochure with some kind of sales on it, it sort of reeks of desperation. And I understand the impetus. Look, all of us want to make our time valuable. We want to grow our business. We're excited if we're new about something we're offering. We've got some kind of special offer. I totally get the urge, but I'm telling you, you're sending the wrong signal. You just have to be patient.
So we've talked about what don't do. Don't be the guy that's just going in and trying to push your services and your products on everybody. But what should we do? Let's flip that. What is, if we were to walk away today with three best practices, three things that say, you know what, if I tick off these three things in every networking event that I attend, then I need to say I'm doing the right thing to build my business and I'm building it the right way. What would those be?
Yeah. Well, the first one I think is to make sure that you're actively listening. I mean, look, people that I say there's three types. There's people who are just there to sell and they're not going to gain much value out of it. And then there's people there who sort of learn to play the game and they'll ask a question or two, but they just can't wait to start talking about themselves. And then there's the real professional. And that's the one that, again, is actively listening. One question leads to a second question, and a second question leads to three, four, and five. And all of a sudden, the other party has spent the majority of the time, um, talking about themselves. And then the biggest mistake also is I'm sitting here trying to figure out, is Doug my client? Can Doug help me? I think that's the wrong approach. Doug knows someone who can help me. I guarantee you. Doug may not be able to help me today, but he knows someone who can. And so if the bottom line is, here's my definition of networking. If I leave an event and I've done something for someone and they're laying on the pillow at night going, "Oh my gosh, I got to figure out a way to repay Scott," that's a successful networking event. So the old cliches about, you know, uh, give first in order to gain and referral later, it's really true. I want to send everyone in that room home thinking about how they can help me because I've helped them. And that has to start there.
Giving for that's an old Zig Ziglar thing. Give,
Yeah,
give, give, and then ask, right?
that's right. That's right. It says I'm on mute. Can you hear me, Doug?
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've got you loud
Okay,
and
great.
clear.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And if you think about it, I mean, all of those old books that were written, whether it was Zig Ziglar or Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, those all apply today in the networking space. They're great ways to get started networking.
Well, let's switch subjects a little bit. And guys, we are talking today to Scott Talley, founder and CEO of Network and Action International. My brain just went south. I need a second cup of coffee, Scott. Uh, and we are getting his insights and how we can utilize networking to build our business to grow as entrepreneurs. But I want to switch gears just slightly because Scott, you mentioned you were a serial entrepreneur. You had a couple of different magazines that you published prior to starting Network in Action. You've been working and building and growing NIA for almost a decade now, and congratulations on that. That is just so fantastic. But look, we all know as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as managers, growing a business is not without its challenges. And I would love to hear from you what kind of challenges you faced, whether it was in the publishing world 30 years ago or whether it's with NIA now. What are some of the challenges have you run up against, and what were some of those things that you did to try to get past, get over, get around? Did you have to switch gears? Did you have to switch streams? What did you do to get past those?
Yeah. So my children laugh when I tell them what I used to do, but 30 years ago, I'll give you a quick story. The Better Business Bureau, which is barely even viable today. I mean, I don't know how important they are anymore when people can go. This is a great metaphor. When people can go instantly to, Yelp, or they can go to Facebook group and say, hey, which pest control company do you use, or who do you like as a locksmith? It sort of has made this organization somewhat, less important. I won't say obsolete, but to offend anyone. But back in those days, some of you, the younger people in the audience, will be like my kids. You won't believe this, but we actually, when we wanted to find an air conditioning company, we pulled out a book, right? And what happened was, the Better Business Bureau said that Doug Burns, if he was a member, could hang the plaque on his wall, but he couldn't go tell anybody he was a member. It was really ludicrous. And one night, Doug, they changed that rule. And the next day, I came up with the idea to do yellow page directories for Better Business Bureaus and Chambers of Commerce. And it grew like wildfire. We had 76 salespeople at one point all around the country in about 33 states. And then what happened? A little entity named Google came along. And overnight, literally, all of a sudden, business owners' lives were completely changed. Because if you think about it, from that day all the way till today, the way we market and the way we advertise has gotten so much more difficult. Now, in some ways, easier. You could just go out and put a Facebook ad, try to target your audience, and hope to get a response, and it works. So it's gotten easier in some ways, but running a business has gotten so much more difficult. And you even said it on the beginning of this. I think I'm a fairly astute marketer. I like to keep up with new things. You mentioned when we first started that this platform we're on here is a new platform, that LinkedIn. So one of the biggest challenges is finding time as a business owner for your Facebook page. You got to post on LinkedIn regularly. You need to make sure you're getting plenty of 5-star reviews. You better know what target marketing is. There's so many different things that a business owner has to at least have a general knowledge of, if not be an expert in, to survive. And so over the years, because I had all these salespeople and I was responsible for making sure that their families had dinner on the table, we had to evolve. And Doug, there probably wasn't a product we offered product out there that we didn't offer, because we had to turn and burn. We had to get our salespeople trained up on whatever was the. And I remember when we first started, remember banner ads. Banner
Yeah.
ads were the flavor of the day when the yellow pages started to go out.
And that
But
was not
one
that long
point,
ago, by the way, guys. If for, especially for some of those new people who might be listening in, that was really not that long ago.
I don't remember what year it was, but a number of years ago, there were 486 publications that went out of business over an 18-month period. One of those was John Kennedy's. And I remember telling uh, uh, my friends at the time, if John Kennedy couldn't make the magazine George work, how the hell could I make a publication work in Houston, Texas? So that's what sort of pushed me out of the publishing business, was just the incredible number of companies that failed during that time.
And publish it, and the idea of what publishing is, I think nowadays has changed too, because of so many new digital platforms that are available. Um, it seems like we're buried underneath a a mountain of choices to where we spend our time reading, or where we spend our time marketing, or where we spend our time in pushing information.
No doubt. And if you think about yourself, I mean, how often do you read a 7 to 9 page article in a trade journal? I mean, not near as often as you scroll through your reels and catch a little 30-second reel. So not only are the platforms different, the amount of time you have to get someone's attention is very different as well.
So what would you do differently now versus, I mean, if you're, as a business owner building a business, and your business is really built on people. I mean, there's no getting around. Well,
Yes.
obviously every business is built around people, but I think yours is, there's no question, is people focused, versus product or service focused. What would you do differently to now versus say 5 years ago, or 3 years ago, um, uh, to grab attention as a marketer, as a salesman for your industry?
If you don't mind, I'm going to go back a little further first, because I hope there's some 30 and 40-year-olds on here, and I hope you're wildly successful, and I hope you hear what I say next. Doug, in my business that was working with Better Business Bureaus and Chamber of Commerce's, we literally were printing money. We were a $8.5 million company almost overnight. Um, and I suffered from a very serious malaise called pride. I thought I knew everything. Why would I hire a coach when the coach I was going to hire had never built an $8 million company so quickly? Right? That kind of thinking. So number one thing I would do, the number one thing I would do over again is I would make sure that I had surrounded myself with people smarter than me. And that doesn't mean they have to have had the same experience you have. In fact, it can be more valuable if they don't. So that goes back a little more than 3 to 5 years. Uh, in terms of things I would change from 3 to 5 years ago, we have made a dramatic shift in our business starting about 4 to 5 years ago. And I wish I would have made that sooner. And so what happened, if I can, it's going to sound like I'm bragging, boasting a little bit, but as you know, Doug, with what we do at a monthly meeting, the connections between our members is so deep that we don't have to spend a lot of time, elevator pitches and standing up and saying we've passed a referral. We created technology for all that. So I would have shifted our focus at the 90-minute meeting sooner and do more of what we're doing now, which is taking a different topic every single month. And Doug Burns, the member of Network in Action, can decide what he wishes to implement. But every single month, we're going to take a topic that's germane to running a small business. And so if you look at the last 5 months, we've taken topics like how to use artificial intelligence to make your LinkedIn, the time you spend on LinkedIn, more efficient. We've talked about the bank system, which is the system of biology, BUI. And bank is a great system to close more sales. We gave our members an opportunity to learn about that. We talked to them about the importance of 5-star reviews, and every single member in the country got software to help them generate more 5-star reviews via text. This month, we're diving into sales. All of us are salespeople. You don't own a business and not need to be great at sales. So I wish we would have started sooner, but I'm really happy with what's transpired over the last 6 months and looking at the next 5 months worth of agendas. Our goal is to bring people $2,000 worth of value at any one meeting if they decide to embrace what we're teaching.
That's an incredible goal, and I know that having attended several meetings, it's definitely like that in many respects. So, folks,
Doug, if you think about
yeah,
it,
go ahead.
Doug, while we're working on, if you and I and 2 or 3 other business owners are sitting at a table and we're working on some project and you're getting real vulnerable about, oh, I'm not good at that, and I'm talking about things I'm not good at or where my business struggles, the referring is going to come organically. When I'm out somewhere and somebody says, oh, I've got to get some new photography, I'm like, hey, you got to call my buddy Doug Burns at D&B Productions. So we're going to get just as many referrals, and we're going to connect on a deeper level, much more organic and much less contrived than traditional networking.
You almost have a built-in board of directors, especially for small businesses, for solopreneurs, for guys who are in it by themselves or with a partner. Having some other people who are in maybe adjacent businesses or adjacent industries, or having been there, done that, it's almost like having a board of directors at some level, isn't it?
Yeah, good. I agree. Yeah.
Folks, if you are tuning in, we want to welcome you. This is Framed Perspectives, a live LinkedIn audio event. This is a new platform on LinkedIn, and we are thrilled that you are with us. If you are with us either out at your desk at work, or you are driving into or from work or around town, we are so thrilled that you have joined us today. Joining me today, I am your host, Douglas Burns. I'm founder of D&B Productions, a corporate photography firm based in Houston, Texas. And joining me today is Mr. Scott Talley, founder and CEO of Network in Action International. I'm going to get that out without stumbling over it at least once today. So if you have got burning questions about networking and using networking to build your business, we want to invite you to come on board, come on the stage, ask your questions. Scott is an incredible source of wisdom and knowledge in this area, having built literally a business not only in networking but around networking and through networking. So we'd love to hear your comments and hear your questions from Scott today. Just feel free to raise your hand here on LinkedIn, and I will be happy to bring you on board. Or you can direct message me through LinkedIn as well. I'll be happy to share your questions. Scott, someone had mentioned to me on a comment last night in promoting this episode that asking about micro networks, and let's and I wish he was on live right now to give us a little more insight into what he was thinking about in terms of micro networks. But what's your opinion of it? And maybe you can start off with maybe giving us a definition of micro networks, and then how we can utilize those.
Well, you know what? That's one of the interesting things about, maybe that's a perfect. Um, I'm not as familiar with a micro network, but it's basically a very tight knit group of individuals or entities that share a common interest. They share goals or professional needs. So, unlike a larger network like Network in Action, where you might have 25 or 28 industries represented, um, a micro network might typically be just a few people who interact more frequently and deeply. Um, so they might be more highly specialized. So, like as an example, we have one particular group in the country that meets regularly, and they're all in the franchising space. So there might be a franchise attorney in there. There might be a franchise marketing person. There might be a franchise broker. So that's what I think of when I think of a micro network. The bottom line is this: whether you have a micro network or more traditional network, the more people, the more people who can go out of their way to refer you, the more successful your business is going to be. So I often ask people when I'm talking to them, how many people know enough about what you do today, Doug, to go out of their way to refer you, and who trust you? And usually that's your spouse and maybe one or two people. Think about that. The typical answer I get is, well, my wife would, or my mom would certainly. Uh, but if you think about it, with the proper networking group and the proper leadership, you can expand that almost overnight by joining a traditional networking group that's run professionally. Because what happens is there's an old, I think it might even be a trademark, about know, like, and trust. And so traditional networking says if you spend 2 years getting people to know, like, and trust you, they'll refer you. And what we do at Network in Action is we're very, very picky about who we let run these groups and own our franchises. And so Doug immediately knows, likes, and trusts his Network in Action franchise owner. So we can circumvent that whole 2 year process in traditional networking down to possibly even one meeting, but certainly two.
That is game changer for so many people, because it does sometimes take a while to build up that know, like, and trust factor as you get out
Oh,
and meet
absolutely.
people.
They market the fact that it takes 2 years. Now I don't know if that's a gimmick to get you to join for 2 years, or but if it takes me 2 years to do something, that does not bode well for my future when so many people want instant gratification, right? I don't really want to sign up for something that's going to take me 2 years to have it pay a dividend.
Oh,
And I'm not suggesting that networking doesn't pay a dividend faster, but certainly at Network in Action, we bring a person into a group. We make sure everyone understands how to connect with him and has the tools to connect with him, and we make sure that the leadership uh, provides ample time for that person to, become know, liked, and trusted.
well, I think any small business owner is looking for very quick returns on no matter what. I mean, 2 years, that's an eternity for any small business.
Yeah,
Um,
you have to today, don't you? I
yeah,
mean, to
it's
you
instantaneous today almost.
exactly. You've got to be nimble. You got to be quick, and you got to. And it's not unfair to have a higher expectation uh, of your networking group.
Well, let's talk about what you should do. You've gone to the networking group, you've done everything right, you've asked a lot of questions, you've made some friends, you've made some connections. Maybe you're walking away with a two or three, four business cards in your pocket. And by the way, guys, I'm still a even in this digital age, I'm a big believer in paper business cards. I love paper business cards because you can sit there and write a note on the back of it, stick it in your pocket, and have a physical reminder when you get back to your desk of what you need to do to follow up on that. But maybe you sent off some LinkedIn connections, or you could use some of these other high tech apps to share contacts with. You get back to your office. What's a really good follow up? What should people be doing after that network event to take full advantage of what it is that they spent that last hour, 2 hours doing?
Let me throw one other thing on there about paper business cards. And granted, Doug, you and I are a little closer to age, and there's probably some younger members of the audience thinking we're a little old fashioned old age. But if I only solely rely on digital business cards, and I meet Doug at a 4:30 chamber meeting, and I head from there to my 5 o'clock networking meeting, and after that I decide to go to the Rotary Club's function. I've been to 3 networking meetings that evening. How the hell do I find a digital business card at my first meeting?
Right.
And I'm sure there's people on here who can tell me, but the point is, if I have the card in my pocket, like you say, with a note on it to call the guy. So that's to me is another reason that good old paper business cards are still important.
And let's face it,
But let me
they're
jump to your
inexpensive.
question. Yeah, exactly. Let me jump to your question. The devil is in the details. The devil is in the follow up, and that's where most people, I think, So watch this. Nowadays, my goodness, build a funnel, build a drip campaign. And the first drip can be, great meeting you tonight. I look forward to seeing how I might help you in the future. Have a great evening, or have a great day. Have a great week. And then you've got them in this funnel. So all the things we talked about earlier about how hard it is to run a business today, there are lots of tools out there that you can either purchase off the shelf, CRM systems, marketing systems, or you can build them yourself or have someone build them, where you build them one time and they continue to pay dividends for years to come. So the devil is in the follow-up, but the follow-up again needs to be focusing on how you might help them in the future, not making a request. That's the biggest mistake I see people make.
That is gold, and I'm writing that one down right now. How to help, not sell. That is gold right there. And if you've been listening for the last 30 minutes or so, guys, if you take nothing away, I want you to take that away, right? Write that one down. Follow up with how can I help you, not how can I sell you.
That's right.
That's incredible.
And if done right, there's going to be ample time in the early days. It's not like not asking you to wait 2 months to let the person know what your offer is, but there's ample time to say, like, for instance, if I send that first message, Doug, and you respond, sometimes I'll respond back, hey Doug, thanks for getting back with me, but you didn't tell me how I can help you. And it's sort of a comical way, just let the guy know that I'm here to help. And then you send something back, usually in response to that. And then it's okay to say, oh, by the way, if you come across anyone that needs professional photography, I would certainly appreciate your referral, and I'll take good care of your friends and family. Now I've made a request. It's subtle. And I didn't ask Doug, hey, Doug, can you let me take your professional picture? You sure wouldn't want me taking a picture? I can screw up an iPhone camera, Doug. But you get my point. I can still have a chance to get my message out in a subtle way where Doug understands that what I need and what I'm looking for. And it might, certainly he's going to be in a better place to want to help me after those initial touches on my part.
That's I'm telling you guys, that is marketing gold right there. Hey, if you are joining us, if you're listening in on LinkedIn, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to have your questions. Scott Talley, owner and founder of Network and Action International, a international networking organization. Scott, give us the 411 on NIA. What's its genesis? Where's it at right now? Where are you taking it?
Wow. So it's not that sexy of a story. I had a publishing marketing company. My children were finally in school, and I told my wife, you're married to an old guy. You better you better find something else to do if something happens to me. And she got a real estate license. And so I said, put on your little pearls and your black and white dress, and I'll take some pictures of it. I'll send you to Doug to get some pictures taken, but you're not going to get any business. You have to go network. So there's certain industries that are just better served with networking than advertising, real estate being one, many others. And so that looks like volunteering at your kid's school, volunteering at the church, getting involved in a hospital, getting the Little League. It's time consuming, but that's where you need to be, out there in the community. And so I told her, you're going to hate the way it's being offered. And she goes, what am I going to hate about it? And I said, weekly meetings and drama and the quality or lack of quality of the members in the group that you don't really have any control over, and the groups disband, and you put a lot of time in. I was really critical. And like any good wife, she says, you think you know so much, why don't you start a networking group? And so in the back of my mind, I'd always thought that it was interesting that only one player was in the industry. Can you imagine wouldn't you like to be the only photographer in all of Texas stuff? Wouldn't that be sweet? It was the only real one company that had dominated this space. And I didn't think they had done a very good job, humbly. And whether they were doing a good job or not, I certainly knew that some people like Domino's and some people like Papa John's. And so a monthly meeting with great technology and professional leadership was going to be completely different than what the industry had experienced for 40 years. And that's what we created. And so people ask me all the time, where do I see this company in 5 years going public, or so many group sizes? Doug, we're really proud of the fact that every single network and action group has a charitable component once a year. And my goal is to get to where every 4 hours, something's going on in the world led by network and action members and their leaders. And we're very proud of the fact that here in the first 10 years, we're already at every 4 days. Every 4 days, something goes on that's led by the members to give back to their communities. And it's whatever they have an abundance of, time or ideas, or if they want to write a check, but no one's expected to write a check. And now we're spreading that globally. We're in South America. We started our first international franchise in Guyana. And I did that on purpose because I thought if we could help a third world country that had just discovered oil, help it become more entrepreneurial, what a blessing that would be. And so we started there. We're in the Baltics, we're in Canada, we're in India, and we're about to launch in Vietnam. So it's been a fun ride.
That is truly amazing from a little startup in Houston, Texas. This little cow town here in Texas.
Yeah.
I say that facetiously, being the fourth largest city in the country. But no, that's truly an incredible story. So you've got chapters in how many different countries now?
So, there's about 4,600 franchise brands in North America, and they typically add 4 new franchises a year, typically about 4 a year. So 4,300 out there, about 16,000 awarded. And we expect to do 40 franchises this year, with the average franchise doing 2 or 3 groups. So we'll start another 80 to 110 groups this year in different parts of the country, as far northwest as Seattle and as far south as Florida. Not everywhere in between, but we're having a lot of fun. And it's the most enjoyable time of my life, because all I do every day is wake up and try to help people, literally, whether I'm helping my franchise owners or helping our members. And our franchise owners echo that too. They really have servant hearts, and that word's overused today. I saw an advertisement for a haircutting franchise, and it says, buy our franchise and change the world. I'm like, well, you're cutting hair. I don't know how you're changing the world, but okay. Everybody wants, especially coming out of COVID. And that's the nicest thing about our franchises. We look for people who just truly want to help others. And more than a few of them. And we've done a good job of surrounding ourselves with people that want to help.
Well, that is definitely the case here in Houston, where I am based, and we're both based. Scott,
I'm not going to let you get off of here, Doug. I'm not letting you get off here, Doug, until we talk about the importance of professional headshots, because I have lots of opinions on that.
Well, let's hear your opinions before you hear mine.
I'm going to be sure. I don't want to. It's your show. It's your show.
Well, let's look. I'm obviously, being a corporate and commercial photographer, I'm very biased and think people should invest in professional headshots, not only for themselves but for their entire staff and for their entire team. showcase the talent that is building everybody's companies. But from a marketing standpoint, you've been in the marketing space and the networking space for 3 decades now. What have you seen in as far as headshots and where
Okay,
how important that is for people?
so it's more important today than ever. And it's for the same reason we've been talking about. So let's go back to entrepreneurship. If you think about it, you have all these different platforms out there that you need to present yourself on. Do you want to present yourself professionally? So the first thing I would say is just consistency across platforms, all your social media sites, your websites. You need those marketing materials. Everything needs to line up. Number two, we talked about how little time you get to make an impression, right? You got to stand out in the crowd. Not only are most of us in a very competitive market, but again, we have very limited time to get in front of people. So we want to make sure that we're standing out in the crowd. And then obviously sort of the same thing, but the versatility, how you're going to use these things. I can't think of anything you'll spend money on that you would get more value out of. You're going to put on your LinkedIn profile. Do you ever go to LinkedIn, Doug, and you see somebody has an avatar up? And I'm like, wait a minute, I can't connect with an avatar. You need to have a professional picture on your LinkedIn. And so that's where the professional headshots can really come in. If you do press releases, a lot of people are putting on business cards now. I mean, we learned one thing coming out of COVID, Doug, and that's that people want to connect with people. And a professional headshot can help you with that. So those are just three things I think about marketing.
Oh, I'm in
When
total agreement with you on that, and I'm going to add, guys, work with a professional photographer, whether it's me or somebody else. It's work with somebody who's physically behind the lens. Do not utilize AI. I was at an NIA event, and someone was showing me off their new AI headshots that they had just gotten back, and I'm looking at this and going, "This looks nothing like you."
Yes.
And I want to know the person I'm doing business with. And if you are following me on LinkedIn, guys, you will see pictures of me from recently where my beard is nice and long and white, and pictures of me where my beard's nice and short and brown, and 30 pounds heavier. But they're all pictures of me. There's an authenticity there that is missing when you start utilizing some of the AI technology to generate headshots and generate personal images. And not that I'm knocking AI as a tool. I utilize
No,
AI
no, no, no.
in a
But there's
number
a
of
place
spaces
for it.
in my business, but
That's right. That's right. Doug, if I could tell a quick story, I live in
absolutely.
a really nice area of town in Houston, Texas. And I would say, the average car is probably not more than a couple years old. People, Houston's a car city, and people buy nice cars. And there's a car repair shop. I lived in this area for 30 years, got in really early, very lucky. And I've lived this area for 30 years. And for 30 years, I've seen this car shop, and it's right in the middle of the nicest part of town. And the car shop on the outside looks like crap. Pardon my French. I don't know another way to say it. It it just doesn't fit in with the neighborhood. They don't do any landscaping. They don't even mow. I mean, it really looks unkept. The building is not painted. And for 30 years, I've driven by there. I've never stopped in there. But 30 years I've driven by there, and I thought, why don't they clean that place up? And when you look in the bays, it's got about 8 bays. They're fixing a bunch of old cars from people in neighborhoods near here, but not the neighborhood they should be serving. And I'm thinking if they would just paint their building, if they would just mow their yard. And I think the metaphor for a professional headshot is the same. You only get one chance. Your mama told you only get one chance to make a first impression. And showing yourself as professional and competent and approachable. And I'll be honest, Doug, in the early days of Network in Action, I thought I couldn't afford it. That's another thing. People, you got to recognize the difference between an expense and an investment. So saying I can't afford a CPA who might charge me $4,000 and they save me 15,000 in tax deductions I didn't know about is not an expense. That's an investment, right?
Oh,
It's the
absolutely.
same thing with a professional headshot. Whatever amount of money I paid 5 or 6 years ago, I have gotten back in spades, because if I was still using, and it actually had a member call me on it, Doug. I had a member say, you know what, you're trying to be a big boy company and you've got a little boy picture. That's literally what he said. And so again, it's an investment. It's not an expense.
Well, here I think one thing we as entrepreneurs tend to forget is we are our brand. The company may be Network in Action International, but it's Scott Talley's brand. The company may be D&B Productions, but it's Douglas Burns' brand. And we have to
Exactly.
project that brand. And if you look at any major Elon Musk, the company's Tesla, but the brand is Elon Musk. The company is X, the brand is still Elon Musk, right?
That's right.
So it's those are things that we have to remember, whether we're at a networking event, working in person, or we are generating collateral for our marketing materials, for our website, for our brochures, for our paper business cards. It is still your brand. You are the brand there. Even if you are just the manager or an employee, it is still your brand that you need to pursue. Guys, we're getting really close to the top of the hour. If you have burning questions, I would love for you to come online and ask Scott before we have to let him go and get on with the rest of his day. This is Mr. Scott Talley, founder and CEO of Network in Action International. Scott, I still haven't gotten it straight through without stumbling over that yet.
Well, you're always free to use our acronym NIA.
Yeah, there you go. But the we want to hear from you guys and ask your burning questions on how we can utilize networking to build our business. Scott, as we wrap things up, as Micro likes to say, land the plane. And Micro, by the way, if you're listening, you are welcome on here anytime. I'm just throwing that out there. The I what takeaways should we walk away with? What things should we be thinking about? What tips or tricks have we not discussed that we should really remember when it comes to networking and building our business?
Well, I think they go hand in hand. Um, if you research this, and I don't remember where I saw it, but there are studies out there that show that profiles with professional photos receive more engagement. And I would follow that up by saying the bigger your network, and this is a cliche, but it's true, the bigger your net worth. And there's no marketing out there. If I have a banner ad or page one placement on Google or anything I do, the second I turn that off, Doug, it quits giving me any value. If I run a Facebook campaign, which we do, and I turn that Facebook campaign off, it stops giving me value. But just the other day, I had my wife asked me, she had a friend that wanted to sell a business, who would I call? And I reached out to a former member who I haven't talked to in 2 years, no longer a member of Network in Action, but I love the guy and I trust him. And I know he's the right person in this case to help this friend of my wife's. And I referred him. And his first comment was, I haven't been a member of NIA in 2 years. I said, so what? So networking is the one marketing investment you'll make that will continue to pay dividends for the rest of your life. The larger your network, the more people you have out there talking about you. And what could be more important to a business than having people know what you do, like you, and believe in you enough to refer you?
That that is so true. That is so true. Who do you know that likes you enough that would be willing to refer you to their network of business and friendly associates?
I mean, think about it. You can only be one place at a time, but I guarantee you, Doug, I've been around Doug enough over the last couple of years. I know that there are 40 to 50 people in our community that if they have an opportunity to pass Doug's name to someone that needs photography, they're going to do it in a heartbeat.
That is
And it's hard to put a value on that.
that's because that's honestly that's marketing that doesn't sleep, right?
That's
That's marketing that literally doesn't sleep. And it's people are thinking about you all the time, with whether you're paying for advertising or not. So
yeah.
well, Scott, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got to run. So we'll end it there. If people want to reach out to you, if they're interested in joining a Network in Action chapter, if they want to reach out to you directly, what can they do to get a hold of you?
So my email is scott@networkinaction.com. And my cell number, which I also have on my LinkedIn profile, is 713-417-6152. We're in the people business. We love talking to you. Doesn't have to be about networking. If I can help in any way, I would love to do that. So thank you so much, Doug, for having me on.
It's been my pleasure and my honor, Scott, to have you on this episode. So folks, this has been an enjoyable conversation. I hope you've learned some stuff. I know that I have. Be sure to be an active listener. Give first, and follow up with how can I help you, not how can I sell you. If those are three top takeaways I'm taking away from this. I hope you found some gems as well. Mr. Scott Talley of Network International has been our guest today. This has been Frames Perspectives. I'm your host, Douglas Burns, founder and CEO of D&B Productions, a corporate photography firm based in Houston, Texas. Scott is the founder of Network in Action, where he helps people build their networks and expand their net worths. We're just going to make that your new tagline, Scott. How about that?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone. I hope to see you again on our next episode soon. Take care.